Hi everybody, I'm Kathleen McLeod. I live in La Cienega. Thank you for coming out, and I appreciate everyone being interested in what's going on with our water. And I was one of the people, I live on Torcida Loop, so my well was affected by I had it tested, and I'm on Torcida Loop where my neighbor also tested one of the first 6 wells that were tested by the county. And his showed enough of a concern with PFAS being found in it that I got my water tested. So that's my background and how I came to be incredibly interested in what's going on with our water. So tonight, we've been sponsoring monthly meetings, and Andrea from the LCVA, Shelley, who is contracted with the county and really so helpful in being our liaison between the county, the community, and other entities, including how we now have our guest speaker for tonight is from the National Guard.
The Army National Guard.
Army National Guard. We'll fill in more on that. So we're going to start with a few updates. You mentioned filtration. Do you want to talk about that, Shelley, or do you want me to?
I mean, we can tag team, but I think you have such first-hand experience. And
Yeah.
you're the reason why I put that
Okay,
whole thing together.
my first-hand experience. The first thing that our mission here is to make sure people are aware of what's going on with the water contamination. Is there anyone here who's brand new to this news? So the next thing is to talk about filters. And because I was one of the people in November who got the phone call from my neighbor saying, "Don't drink your water." You know, I mean, that's like, I can't think of a worse, beginning of a conversation, and he gave me that information, and I just said, I'll talk to you later, but this is a big deal. So, and then all the wheels started spinning, and I knew I had to filter my water, I had to get it tested and all that stuff. So if you have any questions about that, we can fill you in more, but I think most of you know about get your well water tested if you can. It's expensive. There are some options. There are grants around if you need assistance with funding. There's several options there. Happy to talk to you about it later on that level. Also, just filter your water. If you can't get it tested, I would just encourage on some level just to filter your water. There's many levels, and we have information, I think, on the back table. In terms of what kind of filter, information on the back table, do the best you can, but filter your water. You do want to look for certain national Foundation of Sanitation. I think I had that backwards. I thought it was a National Science Foundation. So that was no wonder their website didn't work. So the reason I'm here is that I've done everything wrong the first time, and I want you to not do what I did. So it's the National Federation of Sanitation, NFS or ANSI, and they have standards so that when you're buying a product, you won't just be swept away by their sales pitch that they do everything for your water, they take out PFAS and everything. Really look and check and see if they're certified by NSF, NFS, or ANSI. Again, stuff on the back table. And you have to change your filter based on use, so just keep up with filtering, keep your water as the best you can have. Let's see. Anything else on
Maybe let's just tell them about the topics that have already been addressed and where they can find those.
Oh, yes, with videos. So one of the first meetings we had, our friend back there, D.Craig, has been videoing all of our meetings here. So that's our record. He's back there with the video camera. And so you can go on YouTube. I just Googled, La Cienega Valley PFAS filters or whatever, and things showed up on YouTube. You can also go, I think, our website.
Yes.
La Cienega Valley, spelled out?
LaCienegaValley.com. Yeah.
LaCienegaValley.com. You can watch some of those videos. So the first one, I believe it was in May, it was all about filtering. So you get the whole rundown on what does it mean to filter your water. And there was someone here who has a business in filtering water. So that was really helpful. We've also had the Department of Health here talking about what are the health effects, how to reduce intake of PFAS from the Department of Health. And the New Mexico Environment Department was here talking about the general what they're doing, what happened, the hydrology, what they're doing to help control, test, monitor. We've had Amy, I think I saw Amy. Amy Ewing was here on behalf of the city of Santa Fe, and they've been testing the water at the, and correct me, but at the, well, the wastewater, the Paseo Real wastewater treatment plant. Coming out, going in, you can maybe say just something about where you're testing the water.
Oh, we're sampling groundwater.
Sampling groundwater right near the plant.
There's 7 monitoring wells.
7, okay. So that's information again, because any of you read the New York Times article recently? It's a great article. Within the last month, I think we made a copy of it.
I did not.
Okay, really good. Again, you can find it online, but it's basically how all over the world, probably, but certainly the country, you know, it's 1 point sludge. EPA determined that sewage sludge was good for fertilizing and enhancing soil. And we now know that is true, and historically it's been true. Now it's also a carrier of every single chemical that's come downstream, and E. coli, and PFAS. So anyway, that's another reason it's really great that we're sampling. So I think that's it for updates. If you have
I
any,
have a couple more.
okay.
Yeah. I just, on that note about the city's work to sample water around the wastewater treatment plant and the water reclamation facility. They did their first sampling in June. That report is out. I sent it to Andrea to send out via the Valley Association, but it's also on the Santa Fe County PFAS webpage. So you can just download the PDF or open it up and read it there. It's got some great maps, and the summary at the beginning is very easy to understand and very straightforward. So I just encourage you to look at that. And they did their second sampling, I think, just this past week. So they're gonna do 4 different sampling events. So they've already done one, they've done the second one. We're gonna be getting updates on what these show us over time. They're every quarter. And the other update is that the county, they have that New Mexico Environment Department grant. It's around $460,000, give or take, to do some work in the community to understand to characterize the contamination. And finally, that's been out. They have a contractor. It's in Terra. We have a representative here tonight who's not going to speak yet, but hopefully, maybe next month. Linda works for Terra, and they are the ones who are going to be doing that characterization study. So we've got a lot going on, right? We have the Army National Guard doing their remediation investigation. We've got the city looking around the wastewater treatment plant or the water reclamation facility. And now we have the county that's going to be doing a larger characterization study, really coming into the community. And so they know each other. 3 representatives are here tonight, and we're encouraging their collaboration so they can really not duplicate efforts, but complement the work that they're doing to get a really good picture of what's going on with the contamination that's hitting people's private wells and hopefully nothing else. But do I have anything else? No, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. So welcome everybody for coming, and I think Andrea, you wanted to say something?
I did have one thing I wanted to mention. So we've gotten to a point where I think a lot of residents really know about the need for to see what's going on with your well, to get it tested, and to get filtration in place. So I just want to say good job, everybody, that we've been spreading the word on that. So I wanted to thank everybody who's been, I know people are communicating with their friends and neighbors. It's really important that we communicate this important information across the community. And I also wanted to just mention kind of where we're at in the process. So we're kind of now at step 2, okay, right? So I think people have gotten the word about like filtration, and they're looking into that. And I think now we're at characterization of what is occurring, and our next step after characterization is really remediation, okay? And so, and in the meantime, we're still working on more grants, more opportunities for people to get not just testing initially, but retesting, because this is a moving contaminant that we are tracking. So there will be need not only for initial testing, but for retesting for wells that may have come up with negative PFAS results, but maybe in the area where the flame may be spreading. So I just wanted to kind of let everybody know that we're in this process and we're seeing the steps. So with that, I'd like to just go ahead and introduce our esteemed speaker tonight, Kevin, and tell me if I'm wrong, Sedlak. Is that correct? Right. And without further ado, he is the Restoration Project Manager for the Army National Guard.
Just a little more on myself. I work for Colorado State University. They contract to the Army National Guard. So I work for Colorado State University with the Warner Natural Resources College Center for Environmental Management of Military Lands. And we contract because the Army National Guard doesn't have enough federal employees to do this work. And so we've been contracting with them. I've been with them for 11 years now. Working on this, and I've got Ohio, New Mexico, Texas, and Hawaii are my states that I handle all the Army, any Army National Guard facilities. Not only PFAS, but I do explosives and regular old petroleum spills, regular contamination. You know, it's kind of getting pushed aside now because of the PFAS. I've got a bachelor's and a master's degree in geology from the University of Toledo. Go Rockets. Actually, we've got a good football team here, which is rare. It was Nick Saban's first head coaching job. A little trivia. I've been doing environmental investigation, this kind of work for over 34 years now. So I've been out ahead a long time. So what I did, they asked me to pull a little presentation together. It's informal, and they asked for, let's see.
I'll get out of your way. I'll get the Seneca County.
So they want me to kind of, what we're doing here, it's the Superfund law is what the Department of Defense follows when we're doing cleanups. And it's circular, this is kind of a circular overview. Superfund is usually was made for abandoned sites. People would abandon toxic sites and the government would have to come and the EPA would come and clean it up. Well, the Defense Department obviously didn't abandon any sites, but we work under the framework of CERCLA, which is the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act. And that's why it's got an acronym, CERCLA. And we follow CERCLA, and CERCLA is a program that doesn't have any chemical, doesn't have any standards inside of it. Say, you know, we can only have this much lead or this much PFAS. CERCLA is a law that borrows standards from everywhere else and incorporates them and really is a framework of investigation, how we're going to investigate a problem step by step by step. So that everything's done the same way all the time. It was enacted in 1980. They created a tax on chemical and petroleum industries that and brought federal authority to respond to releases of hazardous substances that may endanger the public health and environment. That's your original writing of that. And it also revised the National Contingency Plan. That's another part of CERCLA that we work under, the National Contingency Plan. And that tells us, that gives us rules where if we have a spill or something like that, we have to record it right away in all this. There's all kinds of regulations under the NCP that we use. The guidelines, procedures to respond to release of threat and release of hazardous substances, pollutants, or contaminants. The NCP also established a national priority list, NPL. That's what they call Superfund sites, or NPLs. None of the Army Guard sites ever are NPL sites because we're actively managing the site, so they don't become on a priority list. Those are usually the sites that are abandoned. They can't find anybody to pay for them, you know, on the priority list. And it's ranked at how bad they are. And so they get the first money and they get prioritized. History of CERCLA. It was enacted again in 1980, and it was because of the Love Canal disaster in New York, in the Valley of Drums in Kentucky. In New York, I don't know if you ever read about this, I do, I'm a geologist. But they were going to dig a big canal, and for something, and some guy dug it, ran out of money, so there was a giant hole. So everybody's like, oh, we can dump stuff there. So they did, and they dumped all kinds of stuff in there, and then it got covered up and forgotten about. And then they built a city, a neighborhood on top of it, schools, the whole works, and there was all kinds of cancer clusters going on, strange diseases in the children and the adults that were living there, and that's when they determined what was going on. And they found it, and they eventually evacuated all the people, tore all the houses down, and it was one of the very, very first Superfund sites, because the people that put the stuff there were long gone. The companies were gone, defunct. It was 50, 60 years. And then the Valley of the Drums was some guy in Kentucky. And yeah, I'll take your hazardous waste for $20 a drum. Well, that's cheaper than the other guy. And he put them on his farm. He had, I think, it was hundreds of thousands of drums of toxic waste. And then it started on fire. That's the only reason anybody found out he had this stuff, because it started on fire. And he couldn't put it out. And that's when the EPA came in. That's what sponsored Sedlak, was those two incidences. Always after the fact, of course, we're reactive, not proactive. And like considering liability of the federal government on its own facilities to clean up a federal facility is not funded with Superfund trust fund monies. That tax on the chemical companies. Under Superfund program, but with other federal monies, we work under DERP, Department of Restoration and Environmental Protection. It's a funding acronym. That's where our money comes in, where we can spend money out of that. However, the EPA states remain responsible for overseeing and enforcing the interpretation of certain federal facilities. So we work with the state and local governments on that. So they asked below, and it's kind of ironic when we're talking about sewage sludge, that's what I put together. And I'm going to just really kind of quick, I'm not going to read this to y'all. I filed this on the thing, but in Texas, the biosolids, they spread them everywhere in Texas. And they've had, if you read some of this, it's poisoned the water, it's killed their livestock. There's lawsuits, there was a company that's sold this stuff. They got it from the sewage treatment plants. They would get it, they would mix it, and then they would sell it to farmers and ranchers. They're supposed to be treated and removed out, but PFAS chemicals are difficult, not impossible to break down or remove. You can't remove them. Unless you incinerate them at super high temperatures, then it's no longer organic. There's organic still out there. Syndrome is the company's name. Largest bio industry in the country. They didn't respond to it for comment. Imagine that. But the biosolids were from more than 60 farms in Maine. Bandies up there finally. They were shut down for PFAS contamination in Michigan. The tainted fertilizer, 2018 New Mexico dairy farmer was forced to euthanize his herd of more than 3,600 cows due to groundwater contamination from nearby Cannon Air Force Base. That's, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that. That was big. That's the Air Force, nothing to do with the Army. Finally, then again, PFAS is an acronym. Really, there's 15,000 chemicals under the PFO and PFAS family of chemicals, and these are chemicals that are mostly fluorinated carbon chain molecules. And that's why they're so hard for them to break down, because the fluorinated carbon chains are very strong molecular attractions, and they're very difficult to break down in nature. And they were made to be like that. They're short, long chain, and it gets extremely complicated. But there's 15,000, and we're looking at the EPA. I could be wrong. I think has the latest is 60 that they've gotten the standards for that they looked at, and none of them have been really toxicologically tested, because you can't test them on humans. And the analogies of using pigs and rats and monkeys, the biology is not lining up like it does on all the other stuff they've always tested. It's just such a unique chemical that affects different people so differently that they really are struggling to figure out what it does and what it causes. Let's see. These guys out here in the farms, they had 90 parts per trillion, and the drinking water in the other farm had 268. parts per trillion. The MCL, the maximum contamination limit the EPA said is 4 parts per trillion in drinking water. Their goal is 0, of course, but it's set at 4 parts per trillion. So these guys are smoking hot over here. Then it just goes on about, you can, like I said, find this stuff. They kill a lot of their livestock. And I put this in here because I know this is a big agricultural area too, so I thought it was important. Syngro, that's, they have a couple numbers I just wanted to show you down here. Period estimates that more than 1.1 million dry metric tons of biosolids are applied to agricultural fields based on 2021 U.S. regulatory data. So that's a year, 1.1 million metric tons. Syngro will likely be the first of many. But, so that's kind of how that, and they've been distributing this stuff. They've had contracts with over 1,000 sewage treatment plants that they collected their product from. And it's been spread all over the country. They're a nationwide organization. So that's just kind of put things in perspective. And here's some other, it's estimated that 18 to 80 million people in the U.S. receive tap water with 10 parts per billion or greater concentration of PFAS in it combined. And likely over 200 million people receive water that is contaminated in the country. It's just the U.S. Government put their own numbers together. This is an older article that has that 70 parts per trillion. That was the first health standard that the EPA just kind of shot out there to have one, because especially the DOD, they were saying, you've got to give us numbers. You've got to give us something so that we know what to go by. And they pretty much forced EPA's hand to come up with a number, because there was no numbers. They said, you need to clean it up. It's like, to what? Where do we clean it up to? And so they came up with that number, and now that number has been gone. It's gone now. It's down to 4 parts per trillion. So it dropped from 70 to 4 parts per trillion. So this is a map. It's kind of it's a cool map. It's an interactive map. All the dots are PFOA and PFAS contaminated sites in the country. I can't really make it any bigger. But you can, on this map, you can zoom in and click on the dots, and it'll give you a little synopsis of what's there for every one of the sites. So there's quite a few.
Is that on the website? On your website?
It's not on our website. I can't remember where it's on.
I've seen that map. I can send out the link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we listed there?
Yeah, it's on Red Chat. But there's also errors, because I've been working at a base in Ohio for 10 years. I did all the groundwater work. We got 330 monitoring wells in, some explosives planned 3 days until artillery shells during World War II. We never had people PFAS out there. We sampled for it, didn't find any, and it's listed on there. So take it with a grain of salt. All this stuff is kind of put together, and some of the data may not be accurate. So I would bet the farm on it. You can do your own research. It's always the best way. Doesn't have more military industrial sites from PFAS in more than 7,457 locations in 50 states, District of Columbia, and 2 territories. I sampled in Puerto Rico for our National Guard down there. We got PFAS down there also, and in Hawaii. We've got 2 sites in Hawaii. So, yeah. Now, so now we'll just get into the circular process. What we're doing out here at the facility. We've completed, this is the circular process. This is how we move through the process of doing the investigation and eventual decision that we make at the end. We did the preliminary assessment. That's where, when this came onto everybody's radar, we got contracts, we sent contractors out to every National Guard base that we have in the territories, all through the states, to see, okay, is there a possibility that there could be a problem? And it was a yes. That site will move to a site inspection, and that's what we completed at Santa Fe AASF, Aviation Army Sports Facility, AASF. We completed the site inspection. The site inspection is to go out there and determine presence or absence. That's it. Nothing else. Is it here or is it not here? Is it in the soil? Is it not in the soil? Is it in the groundwater? Is it not in the groundwater? It's not to determine how much or the full thing, just is it here or not? And we, using the PA information, we knew where to look. Because we had a fire truck out there, we knew where the hangar was, we knew that they would pull it out. And from past experience, they would have to do nozzle checks where they would spray to make sure the nozzles worked. And knowing Army guys, they could just pull it out, test the nozzles in the grass, pull it back in, so they could check it off their to-do list for that day's work. So that's where we sampled, that's where we found it. We found it in the soil, and then we put 2 wells in it, and we found it in the ground. I've got some maps coming up. So now we're moving into the remedial investigation phase, and that's what we're up here this week doing for the community involvement plan. Community involvement plan, what we're trying to do is figure the best way to involve the community into the process that we're doing out there. So we wanted to find out, how do we communicate with folks? What's the best way? We learned all kinds of stuff. All the newspapers, which radio stations everybody listens to, we learned it. We gotta make sure we put stuff out bilingually for our fact sheets and things like that. We had an interpreter ready to go at the ESCP. We had any requests, which we checked with folks. But that's the first stage. And we also have looked for people that we want to form a restoration advisory board. That's also part of the CIP. A restoration advisory board is a group of citizens in the area. The Army helps stand it up. And there's going to be 2 co-chairs. One's going to be the commander of the facility or his designee, and a community co-chair. And then a membership committee is formed with 5 or 6 folks on it. And then how we usually do it is, we have, of course, the Army has a brochure on it, but you send out cards to see if people want to be on the board. Cards come back in, the membership committee looks at them, votes on them, selects the folks, how many people, it's up to the membership committee.
I'm just gonna pass this around, which if you're interested in signing up to be on the advisory board, this is the sign up sheet.
And we'll contact you from that, and that's how we'll put together and see how much, we have to gauge interest. We know there's gonna be a lot of interest. We still have to go through the process of gauging the interest. I've got some sites to where we never get a response.
Does the Army select the advisory board, or does the community?
Nope. The Army just helps stand up. It's all, the RAD is community run, community organized. The Army does have some funding to bring in a technical expert that you will pick as a third party that has nothing to do with us or our contractors to help interpret report results and the technical aspects and things like that, those things are available. And once like I said, we try to stand it up and get it going, and then we will come in and do presentations if requested to bring people up to speed, let them know what's going on. We'll have our contractors come in and do presentations also, whatever the RAB wants to do. And we'll attend the meetings, usually a regulator's on the board from the MAD, and of course the commanding officer from the facility is there because they obviously know what's going on. And it's run by the citizens. So we just kind of, like I said, we just get it going. That's part of the remedial investigation, moving into that. Now, the remedial investigation, I'll flip back now. Let's see. Here's the current schedule that we have right now. The remedial investigation is the investigation that's going to determine the vertical, horizontal extent of any contamination in soil, groundwater, or anything else that we find that there's any contamination in PFAS. And we'll be doing that by drilling, sampling, modeling groundwater, sampling soil at several depths, and analyzing it all. Now this is the schedule currently that's in the RI QAP. That's a quality assurance project plan. It's our work plan. Yes.
Are those samples only on the National Guard site, or where will you be doing this?
We're starting just on our property.
Just in your own property?
Yes. And we will go off if need be. That's not a problem. We've done it many, many places.
And what would need be look like?
Well, if we need to see that the groundwater or something has moved off of past our fence line, we call it. If it has moved past our fence line, we will keep going after till we find it.
So if it's in our wells, you would keep reaching out
Well,
until you found it?
That's something we'll get to.
Okay.
The main thing is, like here, the quap actually I just got, they're supposed to be sending it to me. It might be on my computer when I can hook up to get online again. And it's gonna go to the regulators. It'll be there by Monday. I'm traveling tomorrow, so I may not get to it this evening. And then the regulator's gonna review our work plan. The Army's reviewed it, everybody in the Army's reviewed it. So the regulator's gonna review it, they're gonna return their comments to us. We'll work with their comments, we'll negotiate with them, talk with them, work out their comments. So we both agree that, okay, this is a good document. Then that document will go final. And once that document goes final, it becomes public record because we send it to the NMED. Everything that goes there, because it's Sunshine Law, in New Mexico becomes public record. And if you can't sleep, I suggest reading that because it's interesting.
So fundamental, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Matt,
Yeah.
So fundamentally, you're laying out this RIFS process, which falls under circular,
Correct.
which is a federal action, which would be under EPA, not NMED.
No, it's not, it depends on the state. If NMED has jurisdiction, the EPA will grant states jurisdiction to handle these things. And then they will, the EPA doesn't have anything to do with it. Unless there's a major crop or something where the EPA needs to get involved.
But it's following the circular guidelines under the.
We're following the federal circular guidelines.
CFR 40.
Yes. And so we're looking at to start to mobilize, actually get into the field if the regulators get back with our comments and we get the work left in September. Probably gonna be October before we actually, pre-mobilization, we'll be out there in October, hopefully drilling our first set of wells and taking our soil samples at the facility. We actually today tested the source water at the facility. We have to test the water for people and PFAS that we're gonna use for drilling and decontamination of our gear and our equipment and everything. So we actually took samples today to ship it to the laboratory to make sure we can use the water. If not, we'll have to have water brought in and it's PFAS. People are free. Because when you're looking at 4 parts per trillion, and I've got some stuff on this later on, you just, we're supposed to, when we sample, not take a shower, not use deodorant, cover your car seats with plastic to get to the job site because car seats can have Scotch Guard on them and that's people and PFAS. No food or drink. We have to have PFAS certified pens, Sharpies, paper, everything. We've got a list of 50 things just to go out there and take a sample that we have to adhere to. That's, when you're looking at 4 parts per trillion, that's how important it is. That you don't have, like if you're sampling somebody's well and they have a Teflon brace inside the well pump, that's going to kick off people and PFAS. The water may be fine, but that Teflon or Teflon tape, because Teflon tape is people and PFAS. It's flora. So, that is what it is. So that's how sensitive these measurements are that we're looking at with the laboratories.
Is the swap part of the public domain? Is that?
It will be when it goes final.
Okay, because I'm seeing the schedule's already off, right? So.
Yeah, because
Yeah, so it will be released in the
this was out of the draft
30-day
document.
public comment period.
Well, the public doesn't comment on the quack.
For real?
No,
Okay.
no. The circular law has points where comments are taken. We do this, there is really, the first public commenting is going to be in the proposed plan after the feasibility study, the RI. The proposed plan is where we will propose what the plan is for the site. That's when there will be a public meeting. Now, we're going to have public meetings, obviously way before that, to keep everybody up to date, up to speed. But by law, we don't have to do that until we get to the proposed plan.
Maybe you should.
Well, we can't, the QAP, if we send it out for public comment, we can delay the project for a year. Because if we get 500 or 600 comments on it, which we will, we have to respond to every single comment, which will cost a couple of $100,000 and take a year. And we can't get in the field until that's final. That's why it doesn't go for public comment. So the NMED is going to review it, and it'll be posted. It really is just saying what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. A lot of it's mostly, we've developed a boilerplate on techniques, sampling, analytical methods, and all that stuff, and then we have the specifics for the site that are in.
But it's gonna lay out a sampling strategy where the wells will be.
Yeah, I've got maps, I'll show you in a little bit.
Awesome.
So we're looking at getting out in October, so up till November, that's probably when it's gonna snow and we won't be able to work in the field. Data analysis, data validation. And then we're looking at coming back in the spring to start to fill data gaps to where we have to take more samples, put more wells in. And that's gonna probably be in May. Then I'll go through June. Again, we'll go through data, and then we'll probably have a third mobilization out here. Final characterization, and that'll fill it, to give us the last of our data. Now, this is all assuming, this is how we do it. We plan for 3 mobilizations. We contracted our contractor for 3. So we have money for 3, and if it goes on that, then it does. It is what it is. And then they'll write the report.
And what are the dates for that? It's really, really totally.
Oh, it's,
Quite clear.
we're looking at, the report is January 2028.
2020, and this is the report to put the plan together.
No,
To do?
that's the plan, that's already
Okay.
done. It's going to the regulators tomorrow or Monday. And they'll have like 30 days to review it, and then we'll work on comments with them, get it back, and that lets us get to the field.
Okay, and then what is created by January 2028?
That will be the remedial investigation report.
So
That
you've
will
done an
have,
investigation about what to remediate. At that point, you
Yeah.
will have figured out what to remediate.
the remedial investigation report will tell us exactly what's going on, where it is, how bad it is, everything. Soil, groundwater, everything, because we won't write the report until we know those numbers, and we know that information has been collected.
So 3 years basically to 3 years and some change to come up with the plan for what needs to be remediated.
Correct, come up with a plan of what's there.
Yeah.
How bad, what the magnitude of it is it moving, where's it coming from? We have several sites in the National Guard, where a lot of ours are on airports, to where we've got contamination coming on our site. And we determine that also. You know, we're gonna, a lot of perimeter wells will be on the sewage treatment plant, we got a request of entry, document not filed to get onto their property to sample. And then we need to move on to the airport property. We did that, I've already done FAA notifications. We have to do FAA notifications because we're gonna have a mast up on the drill rig and we're actually on airport, considered airport property. So we had to do all that. There's all kinds of things that have to be done just to get out in the field.
So what I'm wondering is, I think somebody said earlier that the plumes move, so it may not always be that accurate. So if it takes the 3 years and some change,
Plumes move, but they may move 1/1500ths of a foot a year.
but do you
It's
guys
not
put
like a
anything-
river underground where, you know, it's not karst topography where it's cave and water's flowing through it. It's moving from pore to pore to pore. Groundwater moves very slowly. Now, we'll determine how fast it's moving. That's part of the RI. So it would determine transmissivity and conductivity, how fast it moves and how fast it can be withdrawn.
And does this plan have something in place for those movements?
We're gonna be doing, it's called slug testing and pump testing on wells. And we'll monitor the wells when we pull water out and put slugs into them. And that'll tell us all the information we need on modeling the ground. We're gonna model the groundwater, and along with that, model the contaminants in the groundwater. And that's why this process takes a long time. We have to develop and produce data that's defensible, can stand up in a court of law, is irrefutable, that any scientist can take our data and log in a report and say, yeah, okay, I agree. That's how we have to collect the data. Otherwise, if we try to rush it, we get to come back and do it twice. And it takes twice as long.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So the reporting period is 2028, and that's basically, you can all test and everything, and you come up,
Yes.
this is what we see is going on.
Yeah.
And at what point do you come up with a remediation plan?
That is in the feasibility study. That is the next.
And the NMED is still part of that process?
Oh, yeah,
or
as
is it-
part of the, they're gonna be, we like to make them into a team member throughout the entire process. That's the only way we can make everything work properly.
And Kevin, I have a
Sorry.
really quick question. If you share, it looks like you do some data analysis throughout the process. Is
Oh,
that
yeah.
ever shared? Is it ever
It's
shared with the community throughout the
We will-
process or no?
It will not, it probably won't be shared like directly where we would send it out to the community, but once the entity gets it, it becomes public record.
I see.
So we'll probably we'll do data memos as we go, like after the first phase. We're gonna put a data memo together. Okay, here's what we found, here's our plan for the next, because our work plan only covers our first phase. So we'll have to write another, here's what we're gonna do next, kind of an addendum to the work plan. The NMAD will approve that. And so they'll have the data memo. And again, once they get the data memo, it'll be on their website. Once it goes fine.
So, and you had said the proposed site plan would be the first opportunity for public engagement. Is that the same for the report?
Now, the proposed plan, the circular. Here's the proposed plan. After the feasibility study takes all the information from regional investigation, and we come up with alternatives. The number one alternative that we have to include by law is no action. Then we have all their alternatives depending on what we find. Are we going to clean it up? Are we going to monitor it? Are we going to, whatever regional investigation says, we'll have a series of alternatives, they're called. All the alternatives will be weighed against 9 factors in the feasibility study. Can it be done? Everything's in there, and cost is the last factor. Cost is never, none of them are ever selected on cost, but it's a factor that it has to be. Again, we're following the law, the circle of law, so it lays that out. So the feasibility study will say, okay, we've gone through all this, risk assessments, human health, ecological risk assessments are done, groundwater modeling, contaminant modeling, now we got the feasibility study. Here's what the Army proposes to do. We write a proposed plan. We list all the alternatives in there. We put the proposed plan, we say, here's the one that the Army would like to do. The proposed plan goes out for public comment. We have a meeting, we have a 30-day public comment period. We usually put the meeting right in the middle of the public comment period. So folks have time to look at it. We'll put the plan out so that everybody can see it. We'll put it in the library, hard copy, and then of course it'll be on the websites and email out.
Can you sign up to be somebody who's going to receive a copy of that plan, as opposed to getting a notice through like a newspaper publication or?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have our mailing list that we're putting together with our CIP,
Okay.
and all those folks, we'll
It's
send
like
that.
30 days, so really quick, we're trying
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, and we'll put a notification in the paper when it's gonna start, the 30-day comment period where they can get, where the report can be taken, bound and reviewed by the folks. We'll have the meeting, and then we'll decide, the regulator will decide either, yeah, we like that alternative, or no, we can't do that, you guys are nuts. And we'll say, well, why? Well, we want you to do this. We'll say, well, okay, well, let's talk. And then we'll negotiate with their regulator, and we may come up with a different alternative, whatever happens in the negotiation, to make sure that and we'll look at all the comments that come in. Every comment will be responded to. All the comments then, once we do come with a plan, a proposed plan, once we come with pick the alternative that we're going to do for the site, then we write the decision document. It's called a ROD, Record of Decision. That's an actual legal document that goes into the Code of Federal Regulations. It's published as a legal document that we must follow from that point on. We write that, it goes through the usual review process through the regulator and everybody. All the comments that were made in the proposed plan are included in the record of decision. All the responses, the alternative that was selected, and how that alternative is going to be carried out, and it's very specific. I've got one in Ohio for a munitions site where we have to put up 10 signs. The signs have to say this, and they have to be in these areas. And as the people keep stealing my signs, we keep putting 10 up because the ROD tells us we have to keep them to maintain forever. So that's, that site's never going to be, we have munitions washing up out in the lake, shoreline. And it wasn't the Army Guard either, it was during World War I, they were testing stuff in World War II. But And then once the decisions document's done, then we move to a remedial design if called for. The remedial design could be cleanup, containment, monitoring, long-term monitoring, whatever it is. Now, once we'll do that, and then it moves into the remedial action phase. The remedial action phase is actually where we do something. Now, at any time during this, if we find something that's, wow, that's bad, we need to do something now, we can stop this and do what we call a TICRA, which is a time-critical removal action, or a non-TICRA, which is non-time critical removal action, and TICRA. We can stop the process, go in, and mitigate the situation. So say we find there's a river of PFAS and it's flowing, man, and we can go in there and get the money, write a quick plan, and in 6 months, we can stop it. And so that it doesn't create a huge, larger crop. We've done it, we've done it on a few sites that Congress wanted us to do, because we do too much of this. So that can happen at any time depending on what we find, which we'll find during your legal investigation. If we find something that's hazardous to the public health, we're not going to just keep blindly going along. Okay, we'll tell you in 3 years what we found. We'll stop. We'll take action. And that's all in CERCLA.
You're saying that, but that's not happening because there's already wells off-site with PFAS.
Well,
right?
again, the Army National Guard,
So you're basically.
I'm going to tell you the truth.
Okay.
You may not like the truth, but the truth is the truth. I will always speak the truth. I'm a professional geologist. I have an ethics
All respect.
thing.
You're doing a
Everything. I
great
don't
job.
lie because then I don't have to remember anything. It is what it is. Okay? We will do everything to investigate it, to determine what's going on, and determine where it's coming from. The Army National Guard cannot, and this comes from the Secretary of Defense, we cannot take any action until we can say, yes, that's our contamination in your well.
So hence why you presented the biosolids, because Army's immediately going to go look at the city's wastewater plant.
We are going to sample this because they're actually on our property too. They were disposed on our property.
But you're
And we
saying,
sampled them and they do have PFAS in them.
So
It's in
ultimately-
the SI.
yeah, and I'm sorry, but like ultimately 3 years for an RI, which means 5 years. Feasibility study another 2 years, proposed plan another year, decision document. We're 6 or 7 years out to a remedy. How do the people in the community that have wells that impacted resolve the issue that this, right? This is problematic.
Absolutely.
This is
Absolutely. Now
very
we have
democratic.
other sites where we have determined with our first set of wells that we're off site now and we're impacting these folks' wells. And we've already been supplying filters, bottled water. for
And
those
what is the
affected people.
threshold for doing that? Like our well has 26 parts per trillion. That's
Ah.
what we've been drinking.
And that's,
So where did that come from?
Well-
Probably uphill.
yeah, whatever's upgrading of you.
That's you.
Well, it's the airport also.
Uh-huh.
It's also the airport's fire station who has PFAS firefighting foam. They've all have it, they use it, they train with it. If there's been an airplane crash out there, they've used it. So
we
that's
have to
the
wait
thing.
for you guys to decide among
Well,
yourselves whose
exactly.
fault it is.
Well, we're disturbing if if the Army National Guard has contributed to it. And that's why we do what we do and why we're transparent. It's why I'm here today. Is to let you, like I said, I'll tell you the truth. You may not like how it goes, but this is what we have to do. But if we find that it's moving off, we immediately start chasing it down. We don't keep putting walls over here and over here. We start chasing it down. We determine what's going on. And we've done this on many other sites that we have. If you look at the Grayling, Michigan site, that's a huge problem that the Army Guard has caused. I mean, there's a lake out there that we put PFAS into that when the wind blows, it foams up. The PFAS foams up on the lake. And we're doing work out there now. We're supplying and we're also paying to have folks, the water lines hooked up and the attachments from this. There's a township in the city water system, but part of the neighborhood that is impacted, they have wells, and the Army is funding to get them hooked up and get the water system integrated for those people. That's how far the Army's going. Now, the limits is 4 parts per trillion is the maximum contaminant limit. But the Army just made a decision that, well, it should be, we're not gonna supply water until it's 3 times that, so 12. We've already been giving people water at 4. So they changed it to us, well, you have to stop giving them water. And we were like, hey, yeah, we're not doing that. You go out there and tell them. That's exactly what we said. So we're still supplying those folks with water. Because the Army Guard, remember, is the community. We probably have Guard members live here, I'm sure. You know, and so it's not like the Air Force where, you know, they're the Air Force or the Navy. So.
And so just one more question about that.
Here. The man in the hat, question?
Sure.
You said you had mentioned something about working in Hawaii. And Hawaii has a sole source aquifer. Are there special considerations made for sole source aquifers?
Yeah. There can't, yeah. I mean, if it, yeah.
Because this is a sole source aquifer. This area has been designated as a sole source aquifer.
Yeah. But again, the whole thing is where did the contamination come from? And until we.
Well, that's another
determine
question that brings to mind.
You know.
Is if the contamination came from the surface, it could also, you're doing all this groundwater testing, underground water testing. It could be surface water that actually ran off into the river and is being captured in all these beaver dams on the Santa Fe River that's allowing that PFAS to percolate into the groundwater.
Yeah.
Also, so that's got to be taken into consideration as well.
We have some stormwater outlets on the facility.
They usually go
Yeah,
straight into the river,
those.
right?
What's that?
They usually go straight into the river, into the
I
coast.
don't know offhand exactly where the ditch runs, but it runs into the airport ditches and then power of the airport.
No,
And I've got
it's
some
not
maps
the
showing
river.
the surface drainage and stuff like that.
This gentleman who had was the next step.
Thank you. Hey, you made an important comment when you said National Guard's going to go through this process, the Army Guard, and to the extent that they're at fault, et cetera, then there'll possibly be action, et cetera. With the possibility of the National Guard, the Army Guard being one source, potentially, water treatment plant being another possibility, the airport being a third, with the work that you're doing currently, my curiosity would be, is there a way to take the contamination from one spot, one area, and go and test a well then in the community and identify the type of PFAS
Yes.
to the source?
Yeah, we can fingerprint the PFAS, and firefighting foam had specific chemical makeups. There was 2 processes to make PFAS from. To make firefighting foam, there was a molecular process that 3M used, and they patented, and then there was another process that the other folks used. Now, the Army, all the services used, whoever was low bidder because of military contracts, of course, so we use both kinds. We can fingerprint that, and we know what PFAS chemicals of the 15,000 are in that firefighting foam. So they could, if they find the PFAS and stuff in the wells here, and we look at what we've got, we can tell usually if is yours caused by firefighting foam, or is it caused by everything else in the environment that has PFAS in it. I'm sure you're all aware of everything that has PFAS in it. I mean, it's a ubiquitous chemical. It's everywhere. They found it in the Arctic, the Antarctic. I mean, it's in the oceans. It's everywhere. It's been spread around to everything because anything that was waterproof with PFAS. Every fast food wrapper, PFAS. Every deodorant, medicines were actually had it in it. Shampoos, soaps, Scotch Guard, waterproofing for your tent when you go camping. That's all PFAS. Stainmaster carpeting is PFAS. All of that stuff, everything is. A Teflon pan in your kitchen. You wash that, you scrape some of the Teflon off, it goes down your drain into your septic tank. It goes out to your leach field, your downgraded neighbor who has his well, picking that up in his well.
So when you talk about that fingerprinting, just so I'm clear, if you're using the firefighting foam as an example, let's say the airport used something similar, based on the soil, based on the type of foam, etc., can you fingerprint it relative to the Army Guard, relative
Probably
to the
not.
airport, relative
Not.
to the water treatment plant?
Probably not. Well, probably maybe to the water treatment plant because their source is from the sewage that they take in. So it will probably be different.
Doesn't the sewage treatment plant take in sewage from the Army National Guard and the airport?
I would assume they do.
They have floor drains in their bays that drain somewhere, I think they
Right.
go into the sewage system.
It's highly possible. But,
And another question over here, right there, yeah.
yes, sir.
Have the Army National Guard airport hangar there and the airport stopped using these products that contain the PFAS in their firefighting foam and other stuff?
Yes, there is no more firefighting. 2005, we got rid of. They had the fire truck out there with the PFAS. We had these things called Trimax carts, which are the little portable ones you see on the airport that you push around. They look like fire extinguishers. They're actually foam things. They had it there. None of the troops were certified to use it. So they never actually used the fire engine, but they would do these nozzle checks, we believe. In 2005, they got rid of the fire truck, and there was no, some of the hangars would have systems that would spray the foam into the hangar if there was a fire. You know, they never had that there. So there hasn't been firefighting foam for the Army National Guard since 2005. We're not sure where the truck went. We think they might have gave it to the airport. We're not sure though.
When did they start using firefighting foam?
1937?
We have another question up here, Kevin. Andrew has a question.
I have two questions. So, my understanding is that at the Army National Guard, I have two questions. Okay, so the first one's very simple, which is at the Army National Guard facility, it was the early 2000s when they actually stopped using the firefighting foam at that facility. So anything that we're seeing at that facility that's associated with firefighting foam would have been in the area since then. So that's one thing I just want to confirm that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my second question is, so we already know that there has been positive tests for soil and water PFAS at the Army National Guard facility.
Mhm.
We know that there's positive PFAS at the near the wastewater treatment plant. We have heard you say that firefighting foam was used at the Santa Fe Airport, and I think that they're a person that needs to be roped into this whole thing as well in terms of accountability to the public. So assuming everybody plays some limited role in that, okay? Let's say it's all of these things coming together and that's what's causing a variety of different PFAS chemical contaminants in local well. To what extent, if there's contributory negligence, right, would the
Yeah,
National
essentially
Guard
responsible
be involved? Would the
Yeah.
National Guard
Yeah.
stay involved in that process on behalf of local?
If it's determined that, say, this is a map of areas of interest, which means areas that have or may have PFAS contamination. Here's our facility, sewage treatment area. This is where they did it in the airport. So if there's say, our plumes start to mix with these guys. You know, so our stuff comes off and now it's mixing with stuff that the airport has and the sewage treatment plant has. It's all mixed together. Then everyone under certain law is called potential responsible parties. So that's when, unfortunately, the lawyers will be involved, and they will start to determine what percent of whose fault it is. Okay, the Army National Guard is 20%, airports 70%, sewage treatment plants 10%. And then the cost will be divided that
And
way.
this is on the national level.
This is how this is how it works. We're on Navy bases. We're working with the Navy, or we're on Air Force bases, or we're on other airports. But to get to that point,
Okay, and then
it's going to take a long time because the EPA has exempted cities, counties, and states from the law that they put on the DOD, and the manufacturers are the only two that have to do any investigations.
and then,
So we'll investigate ours. If we find it stops, we're done investigating. we're not going to investigate for the airport or for the sewage treatment plant. We cannot get funding for.
Right, you're starting at your facility and working out, but I did wanna ask my second question, which was just the, so do you know whether there have been confirmed uses of firefighting foams by the Santa Fe Airport or the National Guard, in response to, well, I'll just say, not just airplane, but helicopter crashes or any sort of.
I don't remember offhand, but the preliminary assessment will have that data actually in it. They'll have looked up where there have been airplane crashes and things. I think there has been some on here, but I've got so many different airports.
There are two in that report.
And if there was, and then they probably have used firefighting foam. We had one of our Army Guard bases in another state. There was a car crash by the base. Their fire department went out there. The car was on fire, and this was recent, this was a couple weeks ago. They sprayed it with firefighting foam, put the fire out. Now the state and the city are after us to clean up the contamination from the firefighting foam after we put the fire out. So, whenever that foam was used, it's an amazing kind of thing. That's speaking as a geologist, wherever that stuff was used, it contaminated. It contaminates concrete, buildings, ground. It gets into the groundwater extremely fast.
Because we did have an airplane crash into a local residence.
More recent though.
Yeah, just last year. Well, but he's saying that this happened just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Do we know whether any firefighting foams were used associated with that?
But what I just heard was that PFAS are no longer used.
Well, they are.
They're somehow.
There is 2 foams that have passed mil spec that can be used that don't contain PFAS that the military has determined work. So everyone is either switching to them now. Out here at our facility, we're going to go water deluge. We're not going to have any more foam of any kind because who knows what the new foam will be like in 20 years. So most facilities are going to go water deluge. Because you got to remember, firefighting foam was meant to save lives, and it did, and that's why it was used. And when you live in an industrial society, you have these situations pop up. That's just, you know, how it goes. If your plane, if you crashed your plane and it was on fire, you'd be asking for the foam, you know, so that you can live through that crash. So again, we don't have any more. We don't know if the airport does. That's not our business. We haven't inquired with them. They know what's going on. They're part of a stakeholder. So, you know, that's up to them what they do.
I just want to do a quick time check. So it's like almost 7:15. I don't know how much more you want to go through. If you want to open
I
up
just got a
discussions
couple-
at this point.
As well, let me find
Because I did see
the
two
one
more
we're
hands,
gonna put well.
and I want to make sure we have enough time for people to
So,
ask. So this is what you found, right?
this is what we found during the site inspection. We have 2 wells that we put into what we determined was a perched aquifer at this time. This is about 150 foot deep, set on a clay ledge where we hit the groundwater. These other wells along here, we put into what we, from literature and research, determined is a regional aquifer, the sole source aquifer. It was clean. We had no PFAS in that at all. So we just had it in these 2 wells. So this is, we're going to investigate, obviously, around here to see if this is a perched aquifer, how big it is, where it goes, all the characteristics that we need to find out. And we're also going to put additional wells in, upgrade it, and everything else, and do more soil sampling. I've got a slide for that. Roll that quick. But if you look at our numbers, they're not as bad as those farmers in Texas, that's for sure. Those poor fellas. Let's see. Pros. This is the soil sample order sample.
And Kevin, are these the exact maps that are in that site inspection report?
That one was, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the same maps.
So that report is also on the Santa Fe County PFAS webpage. If anybody wants to go, you just can Google Santa Fe County PFAS, and you're going to come to the webpage, and you can find that site inspection report, and then you can see these maps. Not this one, I guess, but the
No,
previous.
this one is actually in the work plan. It's kind of hard to see, but it shows where we're going to be sampling, put wells in, do more soil sampling, and all that around in the area. And this is the first phase, the first time we come out and install wells and collect more samples. And that'll set up when we come out for the second phase, which we don't have, obviously, we don't know yet.
So potential monitor wells that are down gradient, that would be in your second phase, is that right?
Well, the perched area, we don't know what's downgraded. We only have 2 wells. You gotta have a minimum of 3 to form a plane to determine groundwater gradient. You have to know which way the groundwater is moving. You have to have 3 points. We only have 2 wells that we found because, again, the site inspection was just to determine presence or absence. It was not to determine anything else. To see we move to this next phase, which we have. This phase, we'll put more wells and we'll find the edge of that. We'll try to find the edge of that perched area, and we'll put more wells into it so we'll know which way the groundwater is moving, and that'll tell us where we need to keep moving to. Because we don't know.
Sorry, Kevin, the first wells that you're doing now proposed in this first phase of work that you currently have a clap into the.
Yes, it will be there Monday. When I got send it to them, yeah.
So 2 questions about the wells. How deep are they?
The ones in the regional aquifer are about 170 feet below ground surface. And the ones in the perched were right around 150. The exact numbers are in the report, of course. So it's well above the regional.
And will they be capped when this is all done?
Oh, yeah. If we put, that'll be part of the feasibility study on what we do. And we won't cap, we'll abandon them. However, the state of Mexico they have a procedure how to abandon wells, and that's what we follow. So they'll probably be cemented in things pulled and all that sort of thing. They'll be made safe, of course, because you don't want a surface conduit to the aquifer, just in case something happens if the plane crashes on top of a well.
Well, how did,
That'll be back.
so wait, the ones that you tested that you think is in a perched aquifer is at 150, 160?
Yeah, if I remember.
So how did it get all the way from the surface to 160?
We don't know.
So I guess that would be a concern for me because we have a groundwater table that for some people that have wells as shallow as 40 feet in La Cienega area, adjacent to the river. So surface, so even if you found, let's just assume this was completely perched, would that be the end of your investigation, or would you be looking at the surface spread?
Well, we already are doing soil sampling. We've got soil samplings all involved to determine. We've got soil zones that we're going to be looking at up in this area, and we're just splitting them up for easy before we start doing this area here, this area down here. The soil is going to be sampled. We'll be sampled at several depths. We'll be taking like 0 to 1 foot, 0 to 2 foot samples down. So usually we go to about 14 feet and to see what's in there. What's strange about this PFAS when it goes through the soil into the groundwater, again, 150 feet. How did it get that? How did it move down that fast?
That's what I was
We don't know.
commenting before, is the river, the stuff flows to the river and then it percolates into the aquifer that much faster.
If the river's a losing river or if it's a gaining river.
Well, it's an underground river, it flows underground, that river
Well-
flows underground.
Groundwater moves. It doesn't flow like a surface river. Groundwater, like I said, groundwater will flow. When we do the modeling out here, we'll probably find that the groundwater probably flows 2 or 3 inches a year. Is all it moves, because it's moving through pore space. It's not like there's a cave.
We would encourage you to look at what the work that Stacy Timmons has done
Yeah.
already on,
Yeah.
just mention that as well, because there has been a lot of data already collected on
Sure.
the underground.
And this perched aquifer could have a completely different flow characteristic than the regional aquifer, which could have a different flow characteristic than the wells that are getting their water probably from the river. That's the river's losing, which means it's losing water to the groundwater, and that's what's going into wells. That's why the groundwater's probably shallow over there, and there's probably a clay layer or something that's going to be holding that groundwater up. Because if there wasn't, it would just keep going down. Again, the geology is extremely complex. That's why it takes time to study it and do it properly. If we don't do it right, it's like building a house. You build the foundation wrong, the house will be garbage until you knock it down because you're tired of it. Same thing here. If we do this and try to rush things and make stupid conclusions and stupid decisions, we're gonna get to the end and we're not gonna have the answers we need, and then we get to start again. And that's just the whole thing over. Right now, we've got budgeted just for the drilling and soil sampling on the 3 times coming out. $1.2 million is what the DOD and the Army is spending just on this site, just for the drilling and the sampling. So you can see the costs. One well is usually $30,000 to do a 170-foot well. And then,
Could it be possible that there could be groundwater contamination north of the treatment plant that could be, I mean, if you're saying it's in a current aquifer, I'm just wondering, what's the flow of water?
but we don't have that data yet.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't, there's
The city does.
Okay.
We sampled every one of our supply wells and have no PFAS.
right. And the wells that were sampled, looked at the report briefings I just got from Shelley the other day. Those wells are at variable depths. And
What's being ignored here is the Hagerman well is a deep well and has PFAS above the MCL. So we're,
well, that's,
yeah, so,
I mean, yeah.
so the idea of just these little superficial localized purge sampling is not going to address the issue.
No, we're going to determine what we have on our facility. And we'll determine where our responsibility starts and stops. And if it goes to that well, it goes to that well, then we will deal with that at that when we can determine that. We have to determine what's going on. We have to do the investigation. As long and painful as it is for folks, we understand that. But it has to be done this way, because if we don't, somebody will come in and say, you did that wrong, none of your results are any good, start again. Another 3 to 5 years when they find all new people because everybody gets fired.
So that you had a question here.
Yeah, and this may be for you guys, but at what point are all the stakeholders gonna come together and really give us a full picture? Because every time we come, it's a different one, and everybody's pointing fingers, and
Yeah, well, I think, that process is happening now, but everybody's coming on board. So yes, we have the city, and I'm pointing at Amy, who doesn't work for the city, but she's contracting, doing the work around the wastewater treatment plant. Now we have Kevin and the Army National Guard, and that's their plot, and then the county, hopefully, theirs is the real characterization study, right? They're not just the wastewater treatment plant, they're not just the Army National Guard, the aviation facility here. They're trying to do a characterization study of, figuring out like how this is all characterizing, is there a plan?
And that's on behalf of the residents, because county does not have any sources that we think would have caused
Like you're
PFAS
not-
contamination.
Right, they're,
So, so we have that separate, we have a county who's working on our behalf. We're trying to kind of create a task force, and that's what these meetings are for, partially, right? That's what this is.
And the Army Guard will have town hall meetings as we collect data and to make sure the community gets it. The Army Guard, we've got from folks way above my head that have stars on their collars, have said that we will be transparent, we will be honest, we will not hide things by omission, we will not play the games with the community, because the Army Guard has always been the community. When something goes wrong, you call the Guard, they help you, they live here, they drink the water. We have to make sure our soldiers are safe on that facility. That's the main thing. So, like I said, it comes down from the very top that we will not play any games. You will know what we know as soon as we can let you know about it. Nothing's gonna be, like I said, we're gonna tell you the truth. You may not like it, but the truth is the truth. And we will never not say that.
I just want to say that I hear what you're asking, and I am really trying to bring these 3 main entities together to collaborate.
And the airport.
Bring the
Bring the
airport.
airport.
We have any contact with the airport, as the National Guard, as property neighbors, have you had any contact?
The airport
You can
manager,
share that
Mr.
contact
Harris,
with us.
Mr. Harris, the airport manager, he is a stakeholder because, we're part of the airport, we use the airport. So he's kind of a manager, that they work with so we access the runways and stuff for our helicopters.
This is our duty to, now that you bring that up, to address the soldiers that were exposed to this stuff, our neighbors and our family members. that were part of the Guard. I'm a former National Guard member myself, so I can respect what you're saying about the Guard, but I also know that the Guard is human, and they're susceptible to human error, and I can see where this stuff could have been dumped right out on the street and let go down the drain.
Sure.
I've seen stuff like that happen.
Yeah, I've been cleaning this stuff up, not specific stuff up for a long, long time.
So what is,
You know.
what are you guys doing anything to address those people that were exposed to see what their levels of
Well,
PFAS are?
that is something that is not something that
Is that not part of the
G9,
study?
the Army, no, that's not environmental study. That is something that, you know, the Army has their health and safety group, people that handle soldier health and safety. We have nothing to do with that. We just deal with the environment. We're the G9
I think that
facilities.
data would have some relevance to this if those people exposed directly to it are showing these same symptoms as the people that are indirectly exposed to it. You know,
I don't have an answer. I have no answer to that at all.
maybe you could find one.
I'll check to see if there's.
Responsibility, but we could do an epidemiological study. It was something that was interesting enough, like people were interested enough. It wouldn't be impossible to get some type of epidemiological survey. It wouldn't be uncostly, but it's doable.
But you also have to remember that 95% of the people that are tested for PFAS in their blood have it. 95%. That is how prevalent these chemicals are in the environment. They're not all caused by firefighting. Far from it.
Well, and.
Far from it. Now remember, the Army National Guard, we just happen to be the first folks that went and did something and looked for it and found it.
Yeah, that's true.
No one else has. We're the first ones, and we understand that's why we get the questions, and that's why we get the concerned citizens. Because we're the first ones that have looked for it, and we're the first ones that have found it. And we have this on bases all across the country. We're the first ones to go in and find this stuff and look for it. So we get all the concerned citizens and everything else, and that's what we try to answer. As many questions and do as much as we can. There's only so much we can do, and that's just, you know, how that works out. You know, again, I have a well. I live a mile from a military facility. I also have a well. Now we have 330 monitoring wells in. We don't have people on PFAS. I am down gradient, but since I did the work, it's not a problem. But so I understand if my well was contaminated, I would not have another source of water besides hauling water from my house. So I understand exactly how it is to have this, and it's not good. But like I said, once it has to be determined how it got here. We can't fix it until we determine where the source is. If the source is the Army National Guard, the Army National Guard will step up and take care of this. They have in the past and are doing it currently all across the country. But it has to be determined. You have to find the source, because if you don't find the source, you're trying to put a fire out by spraying the top of the flames, and the fire's down here burning. It never goes out. It's just how this stuff works. It's a long, complicated process.
Did you know if anybody has tested the Santa Fe River?
It has been, I've heard that the river has been tested.
What were the results?
I don't, I think what I was told on one, that it was clean, there wasn't any in the river, is what I remember hearing.
You can ask Amy, she's here, you can ask her if she's looked for that. The river itself has been sampled. So
I think it has been sampled by
maybe
watershed folks or some of the river folks. I remember seeing something on it.
Told you, cola.
Thank you, Kevin. Excellent presentation. Appreciate you, Kevin. Who's the NMED RPM for this project?
I think it's John Roderick. I believe he's the one that's in our Mr. Bill.
And you mentioned that you had that the Army has selected an engineering consultant for the
Yeah,
Well,
AECOM. They're a joint venture with Mercatus.
Okay.
And again, another thing too is why a lot of states, and this is just.
And has the Army funded at least through?
Oh, yeah, it's all.
Through what?
Through
the RI?
Through their veto investigation. There's a contract in place. And there's another thing that there is so much of this work going on in the country. These companies can't find people to do the work. That's slowing everything down. Laboratories can't process the samples. We used to get sample turnaround in 3-4 days, 10 days on the outside for every other kind of sample. PFAS now are taking 3 months to get results. So we collect all the samples and we set for 3 months, waiting for the results to come back to us. Then we have to put them through data validation to where we validate the data to make sure the data is perfect. So
I did want to say,
that's another problem. we're
in
having.
addition to thanking you, I wanted to say that that in this room right now, we have representatives from the county. We have our county commissioner, Camila Bustamante here. We have Bill Schneider from the city of Santa Fe, Amy Ewing, contracted with the city of Santa Fe, Linda, I don't know your last name, Nice, and she is going to be contracting as well. We also have Senator Stefanik, who has left at this time.
No, I didn't have never been said.
And so, you know, one of the things I want to mention is we have a lot of people in this room who can have candid conversations and be transparent, you know, about these processes, and we really appreciate you being here. We appreciate all of your presentations, and this is a great source of knowledge for our community, regardless of whether we are happy with these processes or not. We understand what they are, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, like I said, we're gonna do it as fast as we can and make it right. That's all we can, that's what we're gonna do. That's what we're told to do. That's